Today is that day. We are going to break down an original song that I've worked on with the Shoy and Oria as the singer on this. This one gives you that Caribbean feel vibe. So once he gave me these files, so I had them here, right? So I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, all right, you got this loop. I was a little stuck. It's like, what do I do with it? What do I do with it? So the first thing I try to figure out is what's the chord progression that's in there, right? It's what the bass notes are playing. So and it's so we have that. So I figured out the chord progression. I got my bass, but it needed more to it. So the next thing, to keep the Caribbean vibe alive, I had this, like, it's similar to a steel pan, but it's a different instrument, right? And it goes more like, and next thing, you know, we gotta bring the bass. So since I had the foundation right there, I had to figure out what should that bass be more like. So in my mind, I gotta find something that's like a synth, and I'm gonna take off the high end so that it could sound very boomy, and you can really feel that, right? So I found this sound right here I was playing with, and then once we bring down the bass down, right? And to make this even more effective, I went an octave below that, so I had these two basses together, and I'm gonna let you hear why I needed that right here. So he comes in. Boom. So I got the bass, and I found out his chord progressions around it. The next thing I wanted to add to keep the vibe going is this other sound that I've used before. It's an arpeggiator. That's the type of sound that it is. It's pretty much a sound that keeps going up and down. So it's like it just keeps going up and down and such. But if you give it a chord, it's gonna go through that chord and such. So I had exported this because I had to do this in FL Studio. It's from Hypersonic 2, and I had to open my FL Studio. All right, some of y'all producers might hate me on this, but I have 10. All right, I still have 10 because I have a lot of stuff I did on FL Studio 10, and that's where I had this original sound coming out of, to keep that Caribbean vibe going. Bringing our bass in. I'm hoping that it starts making sense to you. And that's all the beginning had. And then we transitioned using some drums, because so I have my drums right here. That is my So this is how we be playing around with sounds until we find the right one. Right? So it was this like little snare up here, and I had that. So as everything else was coming together, so all together you had, that's all it is, right? So we had that slope going right there, and then that brings us to the beginning of his verse, because this is where Oria started shining. So I kept the steel pen on loop, but I EQ'd it. I took out the high ends, so that way you are able to hear her more, because her vocals have to be more present in the song at that point. So, right? Compared to the steel pen we had in the beginning. So this is the beginning of the verse. Kept our Caribbean sound in there. Even our 2B sounds, the arpeggiator, had to be tucked into. Everything is like tucked in, because it gives her time to shine now in terms of her vocals. And then the other part to this, so we got these high normal sounds, we tucked them in, and now we had to bring a different type of bass in, because I wanted it to be a little different. So I was just like, you know, what can I do here? So I found this other bass sound. I was just like, I think I know what I'm gonna do. It's gonna be more And then I had another sound that mimicked that exactly, which I had gotten from FL Studio as well. So once I had that, now it's time we actually do the drums. And you know, our Caribbean drums gotta feel more like a right. Gotta give that vibe to it. So piano kicks and bring the snares in. The chorus. I didn't really do much here, just added some orchestral sounds, a pizzicato, and as well as a pizzicato, as well as some strings. So it was more like, and that's what you hear here. You know we gotta do the transition. So the transition is just playing with this synth. In my other video, when I was working on the Christian covers, I had touched upon this a little bit, but playing with the glide just lets you put it in a monophonic state, so it's not gonna let you play no more than one note at a time. If I'm transitioning to one note, it's gonna try to glide to that next note. And we could use this to create this like transition that is about to escalate, things going up. So if I were here, that's how we do that. And the other part is some wind I added here as well. So while that was playing, and we had the drop right there. It's an orchestral hit, and that's all it is, because that part now transitioned to this other breakdown of the chorus. But to my head, I was just like, man, it still feels like a little empty, right? Like I wasn't sure, but it was missing something. I'm like, we gotta figure out something else to put there, because she goes back into the verse after that part, but during that second part of the chorus it needed something. So I was like, I think I know, I figured something out. So instead, what I chose to do is use her own vocals within the song. So I took a small part of her saying energy, and I just took the G part. That's what you're hearing right there. There are little tweaks in terms of sound manipulation. I use Contact. Contact has some manipulations that it can do on there on the vocals to tweak it and make it sound this way it is. Like you sound like a big person, right? So I was like, so that was the first part. I was like, all right, I think I got something. But then there's something else too. I was like, that's only like half of that part of the chorus. I need the other half to actually come in. And I was like, let me just take it an octave below, actually. And that might do it. And this time we might be able to hear her say the forward energy a lot much more. So I was like, all right, I think I got it too. Energy. That was the word that she said right there, and did the same effect. Instead of just using the G part, I used the whole word. Energy. Right? So with the music. So that was it. That was the two parts of the chorus. So piecing it all together, now we have. And now was that. And the other last thing I did to the vocals is do some stuff in the bottom end because I love playing with that whole glide effect and especially with the vocals. So I had. So you're gonna hear it, right? That was that, and merge that with the other one. So now you have them all together. This was the amazing thing about her vocals as well. She had this clever idea to really bring out the sensation of the song. So throughout her singing all this, another part you'll hear is right. Closer, closer, space between you and me. You'll hear these like sexual noises because it had to bring out the vibes completely. I'm gonna mute her leads. Right? It was kind of fun working on that though because I'm like, man, I really want this to come out. So if I mute all the effects right now, so that way you're not hearing none of the effects. We randomly like put these throughout the song all together, and that was it, right? And I kind of loop some of them over and over, and you'll hear them like all throughout. And then once you add the reverb on top of that, it really brings it out and such. That was another cool thing, fun thing to do actually. But I was happy how it came out because it really gave the song the vibe that it needed to have, that energy, that closer. It really went along with the theme. So good job to Oria for piecing this together and us like really envisioning that as well. And I fused it all together and we was ready. Because we recorded the song bare minimum before I did all this stuff. It was just to its like basic form. Typically that's how artists needs the record to be so that way they can feel free to explore with the lyrics. Once I had these two now pieced all together, now I was able to actually put that in the mix of the song. So now we're going to open up the mix. See what I was able to do here in the beginning. You already seeing me playing around with her vocals because she says that in the song. Wind it up and turn it down. And that's all it is. So it filled the song completely. She had her part of the chorus where she tells, "Come take my hand," right? When she starts bringing the vibe of the song, of the mood, the scenery, what's happening with her, and this other energy that was in the room and such, and it just came all together. If you told me this is exactly how I thought it was gonna be once we started recording this or working on the track, me, Shoy, and her, I had no idea at all. This is the spontaneous, beautiful side of music. You just never know what to expect. As you work along, something is just gonna spark. I guess that's the part that AI probably can't figure out because those are moods and emotion that God gave us inside of us that sparks out of nowhere. There's infinite possibilities and it just creates. AI is a great assistant. Technology is great. Like all this I've been able to piece together inside of this laptop. Back in the days, you had to have a full room full of musicians, keyboard synthesizers, and all this other stuff. Now it's all impact in here. But that's pretty much the meat of the song, and it just goes through those breakdowns. She does the other verse, and that's all there is to it. Once we like got through the recording, mixing down, and all this stuff, it was time to master this and piece it all together. So, unlike the Christian covers that I worked on, this I actually had to export the mix as a 2-track, left channel, right channel. So it's all stereo and such. And I'm gonna open the Logic session because I always master in Logic. For some reason, I find that the output of Logic is greater than Pro Tools. That's just me. First part of mastering for me is cleaning up the left side and the right side individually. What that means is just taking out certain frequencies using the equalizer and plugging them out. Just to show you an example, what do I mean by that? Like, what this does not make any sense. So I'll play this one for example, right? So I disable the EQ, and we have the EQ disabled. So you're only hearing the left side. I'm gonna bring it in the middle for now. Closer, space between you and me. Lights out, music loud. This is without no EQ. Now let me play that same part of it again. I know you're like, what's the difference? What happened? Alright, so this one annoying frequency here. That was the first one, right? So I try to find where that is, and I pull it down just a little bit just so that it can be tucked away. And then the next one was this part here, right? We don't need that muddiness in the song. Tuck it away as well. And then the last one that was in there. Can't wait to see the dark faces, strange faces. And that was it. So those three frequencies right there, I tucked them out of the left side. And the right side, similar frequencies too, because they're usually like replicated. And once I did that, it was now at this point, now split them back out to be left and right, in stereo mode. And now we have our two together. Now I can like start mastering them together instead of separate. So now it sounds like that. Now I got to take out a lower end frequency, which is like in between the drums, the bass, right, and where her vocals start. I had to split that a little bit more, and that's like around the 295 range. That's the exact frequency. This is with it on. This is with it off. And this is with it on. I know it's subtle. It's like, I'm not hearing the difference at all. I don't know what you're talking about. But it's like finding those frequencies because you got to exaggerate it. So if I brought this up, you'll be able to hear exactly what I was talking about. That's what I was getting rid of. You couldn't hear it in the song if I didn't exaggerate it like that. Like if I left it as is, you wouldn't hear as much. But once I bring it down, it makes a difference to how the song feels. And then the next thing I had is this Brainworks. With the Brainworks, all I use it for is to make the song sound a little wider. I don't really use it for much. And then I mono the bass as well. What that means, bass doesn't really need to be stereo. Like nobody listens to bass stereo. Like I'm gonna hear a left drum bass here and a right drum bass there. That needs to be different. It could just be unified because people don't really rock out to bass like that, right? So that's the next thing I did. You're not gonna really be able to hear that as much, so I'm gonna skip that. The next part of it is called a multi-band compressor. What that does is the lower end, it adjusts it to where, let me turn it on so then you guys know what I'm talking about. So we're gonna solo our lower end. This is without nothing, right? And this is with it on. It's hard to hear it because I know it's like you're not in the room with me, but what it's doing is making sure that the bass ain't punching off like to a certain point all over the place. It's more like stabilized. That's all it does. Levels it out. And then we had our mid end as well. Same thing. And then this next one, after the middle one, starting to get the middle high range, that's where like your snare hits. So instead of so that it's not irritating people's ear, you want to put something on there too, so that way it's not slapping too harsh to people's ears. This is with it off. You hear the snare, the thing that goes, right? So that part right there. Now this is on a. It's not as harsh because it's the compressor is hitting the compressor, so now it's not hurting your ears as much. And the last part is the high. It's another high, tough one to really hear as much. If I bypass it, and then I turn it on, it just blends it in a lot more and such. So if I turn on without the multi-bend compressor, right? This is what the song sound like. And this is what it sounds with it. Bam. So the song is a little bit more balanced now in terms of the different frequency range, and now I had to play around with the EQ, take out a lot of frequencies that was not needed, right? So then the kicks could sound more punchy. It's not as muddy, it's cleaner, it's separated. And then another EQ, same thing, adjust the bass. And then the last EQ that I had was to take off the unnecessary frequency. So that's like in the really high end and the really low end that humans are probably not going to care about if hearing. And that was the last one. And you add all that together and this is what you have. So this is it before, right? And this is it after all this cleanup that I was doing. Sounds clean, right? Bam. Last part of this is our limiter, our L2, and then we are done. All the L2 does is it brings everything as loud as possible. All the instruments are closer together. Irony here with the song closer. But it makes everything as loud as radio, so that way as you're transitioning from this song to other songs, it's kind of smooth. And from other songs to this song, it's smooth as well. And that's it. A lot of this is done with headphones actually in a room where I'm really quiet and focused, and it takes a couple of days to figure out what those frequencies are. It's not something that happens like this. But that's how that pieces together. And that's our song. Finalized. And everything is not as punchy in your face and harsh to your ears. So that's pretty much how Closer came together with the Shoy on the steel pan, and Oria with her amazing vocals. I hope you found this insightful in any way, shape, or form. Again, like, share, subscribe if you gain something out of this or you feel that this could really inspire someone. And you can always email me@yarleyg.com. That's me@yarleyg.com. My website is yarleygmusic.com. I'll see y'all next time. Peace and love. Yeah.